Just like in many animes, movies, and series, there are many things that pass unnoticed by us fans. And Dragon Ball is not much different from that. Many things that many don't know but are really cool and add a lot to the work itself. I pointed out some of these facts here, things that we can't even imagine or know, and one better than the other. Ready, my friends? Then hurry and subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and activate the bell. Dragon Ball is one of the most iconic works in the history of anime and manga. But what makes it even more fascinating is the number of curiosities and details hidden behind Akira Toriyama's creation. Over decades, this franchise built not only a narrative universe full of epic battles and memorable characters, but also its own mythology that intertwines with historical, cultural, and even accidental inspirations. It is precisely this mixture of genius and chance that gave life to a cultural phenomenon capable of crossing generations. When you look more closely, it's possible to notice that each element of the work has an origin, a justification, or an impact greater than imagined. And it is at this point that several curiosities come in that help to understand why Dragon Ball is so unique. The starting point is the central figure of Goku, whose inspiration didn't come out of nowhere. Akira Toriyama was directly inspired by Sun Wukong, the Monkey King of Chinese mythology, protagonist of the literary classic Journey to the West. This centuries-old work describes the adventures of a mischievous and extremely powerful monkey who possesses special abilities, among them the use of a magical staff that can change size and a flying cloud that transports him quickly. When we observe the initial phase of Dragon Ball, the similarity is undeniable. Goku carries a staff that grows according to his will, the Nyoibo, and moves through the flying cloud called Kintoan. In addition, Goku's childlike innocence, his naivety, and at the same time his immense strength are clear reflections of Sun Wukong's personality, although Toriyama shaped the character in his own way, transforming him from a mere mischievous monkey into a pure-hearted hero who would become a symbol of determination for millions of fans around the world. This inspiration demonstrates how Toriyama knew how to adapt traditional elements of Asian culture to create something totally new that dialogues both with Oriental roots and with global imagination. But Dragon Ball wouldn't be Dragon Ball if it were only about Goku, and that's precisely why Vegeta, his eternal rival, plays such an important role. The Prince of the Saiyans almost didn't make it past the first phase of his appearance. In the Saiyan saga, when he arrives on Earth accompanied by Nappa, Toriyama's initial idea was not to keep him as a recurring character. Vegeta was supposed to be just another powerful enemy to be defeated, following the pattern previously established with other villains. However, his unexpected popularity among readers changed everything. Fans were fascinated by his arrogance, his grandeur, and the direct rivalry he created with Goku. This reception made Toriyama decide to keep him, turning him into an essential part of the narrative. Over time, Vegeta became not only a rival, but also an ally, father, protector, and one of the most complex characters in the franchise. The fact that he was almost discarded shows how sometimes the direction of a work doesn't depend only on the author's pen, but also on the audience's response, which in the case of Dragon Ball, has always had significant weight. Another detail that arose more from practicality than genius was the famous blonde hair of the Super Saiyan. When Goku transforms for the first time in front of Frieza on Namek, the impact is gigantic. But the reason behind this choice was something much simpler. In the manga, drawn in black and white, Akira Toriyama was tired of spending time coloring the hair black on every page. So, he decided that the transformation would have light-colored hair, which made the process easier since he no longer needed to shade. The result, however, ended up becoming iconic. The image of Goku with golden hair and green eyes became a symbol not only of power, but also of a cultural milestone that crossed borders. It's curious to think that a decision born out of practicality turned into one of the most remembered elements of the franchise. Speaking of Frieza, it is interesting to observe that this villain carries with him more than just the simple role of antagonist. Many scholars and fans point out that Frieza is Akira Toriyama's criticism of Japanese capitalism in the 1980s, especially the class of businessmen in the real estate sector. At that time, Japan was experiencing an economic boom, and many businessmen got rich speculating with land and properties. Frieza, who travels from planet to planet, destroying and reselling conquered worlds, directly reflects this predatory and greedy mentality. He doesn't fight only for power or fun, but also for profit, treating entire planets as commodities. This parallel shows how Dragon Ball, even being a work of entertainment, also carries subtle social criticism that goes unnoticed at first glance. Among so many warriors who faced death countless times, there is a character who curiously remained alive from beginning to end, Mr. Satan. This comical character, who at many times serves as comic relief, never died throughout the entire franchise. Considering the high number of deaths and resurrections, especially among important characters like Krillin, Piccolo, and even Goku, it is surprising that Mr. Satan managed to escape this fate. This can be interpreted as a way of preserving his role as a representation of common humanity. He is the character who, despite being fragile compared to the Z Warriors, symbolizes the courage and hope of ordinary people, which may be the reason why Toriyama chose to spare him from a tragic end. Bulma, on the other hand, represents another kind of peculiarity. Throughout the series, she had 15 different haircuts, being the character who underwent the most visual changes. This constant variation shows not only Toriyama's attention to detail, but also Bulma's role as a link of modernity within the narrative. She is one of the few characters who ages realistically, changing her appearance over time, just like any person. While Goku, Vegeta, and other warriors rarely show significant visual changes, Bulma symbolizes the passage of time in a more natural way, which helps bring the audience closer to the reality of the story. On the other hand, we have Krillin, the character who experienced death the most times. He died 5 times, which makes him one of the record holders in this aspect within the franchise. These constant deaths turned him into a symbol of vulnerability, but also of resilience. Even though he is not the strongest, Krillin has always been present in the most important battles, showing courage and determination. In addition, the marks on his head have an explanation that often goes unnoticed. They are not mere aesthetic details, but incense burns, the result of his training as a monk. This detail connects Krillin to real Buddhist traditions, once again revealing the cultural and religious influence that permeates Dragon Ball in small nuances. Another curious moment is the unexpected appearance of Hitler in one of the franchise's movies. In the film Fusion Reborn, when hell opens up and villains of the past return, there is a scene where Goten and Trunks face Nazi soldiers led by a caricature of Hitler. The duo of young warriors easily defeats the army, turning a historical figure associated with terror into a target of comedy and humiliation. This kind of insertion shows how Dragon Ball also played with absurd and unusual elements, unafraid to mix fantasy with historical references. Even the title of the work holds a curiosity. The name, Dragon Ball Z, came about from a reading mistake. The initial intention was that the new phase of the story would be called Dragon Ball 2, representing a direct continuation. However, the writing of the number 2 was read as the letter Z, and Toriyama ended up keeping the title. This accidental choice became one of the strongest trademarks of the franchise, since the Z came to symbolize a new stage of the series, more focused on epic battles and decisive confrontations. The voice of Goku in Japan also carries a remarkable peculiarity. From the very beginning, the one who voices the hero is a woman, Masako Nozawa. Even more impressive is the fact that she also voices Gohan and Goten, managing to bring 3 generations of Saiyans to life with her vocal versatility. This choice may seem strange to a Western audience, but in Japan it is common for young male characters to be voiced by women. Nozawa's dedication is so great that to this day, even at an advanced age, she continues to perform Goku with the same energy, becoming a true legend of voice acting. Curiously, even Goku's address has been revealed in official materials. He lives in East District 439, a detail that reinforces how Dragon Ball, despite dealing with entire universes, also cares about giving small information about the daily lives of its characters. This kind of detail fuels the fans' imagination, who begin to see Goku not only as a warrior, but as someone with a home, family, and roots in a specific place. Throughout its history, Dragon Ball also faced the issue of censorship, especially in its adaptation for the United States. Many scenes with sexual or suggestive content were cut or altered, even changing the tone of the work at times. Characters like Master Roshi, famous for his perverted behavior, had lines and attitudes altered to suit the American audience. This censorship sparked debates about how far a work should be adapted for different cultures, since in many cases, the humor and original characteristics ended up being lost. Another curious detail lies in the names Bibidi, Babidi, and Bu. These characters are a clear reference to the enchantment Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo from the Cinderella animation. Toriyama known for his sense of humor and puns, made sure to insert this joke into one of the most intense arcs of the series. This choice shows how, even in moments of great seriousness, the work never lost its light and creative nature. Finally, we cannot forget the impact that Dragon Ball had on other works. The fighting style created by Toriyama, with fast movements, energy explosions, and increasingly grand battles, directly influenced animes such as Naruto and Bleach. Although this influence is often not explicitly recognized, it is impossible to ignore how the way of narrating fights in action animes changed after Dragon Ball. The standard established by Toriyama became a reference, shaping an entire generation of mangaka and animators. All these curiosities, when observed together, reveal that Dragon Ball is much more than a simple story of fights. It is a mosaic of cultural inspirations, creative choices, happy accidents, and audience responses that ended up building one of the greatest franchises in pop culture. Every detail, from Goku's magic staff to Bulma's haircut, from the title mistake to the social critique embedded in Frieza, contributes to making this work something timeless. Dragon Ball is at the same time myth and reality, tradition and innovation, simplicity and complexity, and perhaps it is precisely this unique mixture that makes it so that, even after so many years, it continues to be a source of fascination and passion for fans all over the world. Another remarkable point is that Toriyama wanted to end Dragon Ball right after the Frieza saga. For him, that was the perfect climax. Goku transformed into a Super Saiyan for the first time, defeating the most feared tyrant in the universe. But the success was so overwhelming that the editors insisted for the story to continue, which resulted in the Android, Cell, and Buu sagas, and later Super and Daima. So guys, have you ever thought if Dragon Ball Z had really ended there? Comment below